Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Ravi Arora. Thank you very much, Sarah. And on behalf of the Sikh Arts and Film Foundation, it is my privilege to welcome you all to our 10th annual Leadership Summit, which also, by the way, is our first virtual summit that we are hosting. Over 900 of you registered to take the time to join us from across North America, Europe, South Asia, and the Middle East, and I'm sure many other geographies. 10 years ago, we realized the need to create opportunities to learn from and network with each other, which led to the formation of this forum. And our foundation's goal for the annual Leadership Summit series is to facilitate interactions and be inspired by the journeys and experiences of a diverse range of leaders who come from a variety of disciplines from across the world. These are indeed unprecedented times for all of us. And if anything, one of the many takeaways from this pandemic is that our world has become smaller and more interconnected. And you all joining us from many different parts of the world is a testament to that. However, the pandemic has changed so many things that people, businesses, and societies took for granted and assumed it would never change, which brings me to the theme of today's forum, navigating crisis and building trust. We are truly fortunate to be joined today with some amazing leaders, New Jersey Attorney General Gurbir Grewal, Mr. Ajay Banga, Dr. Mandeep Rai, Ms. Kiran Kiki Kapani, Mr. Aman Bhutani, and Dr. R.S. Sodhi. Amazing leaders, and they've all lent their time to share their diverse perspectives on leadership, values, and guidance on what it means to be authentic and navigate crisis and build trust. We do want to make this a very interactive session today. So please do use the Q&A button either at the bottom or on the top of your screen to post questions for the panel as the panel sessions gets underway. So we look forward to your questions. I would now, without further ado, like to invite the president of the Sikh Art and Film Foundation, Mr. Teji Bindra, for his remarks. Teji ji, over to you.
Thank you, Ravi. Good morning, good evening, and Sat Sri Akal. Welcome everyone to our 10th annual Leadership Summit, and a very unique one, as Ravi rightfully pointed out, as this is our first virtual summit. During these unprecedented times, we have to be mindful and careful of everyone's health and safety, but still we're very glad that we can bring a lot of us people together for yet another amazing summit. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome the panelist, moderator, and all the participants who are joining from all over the world. And thank you all for taking the time. You're all coming from different time zones. We thank you immensely. As many of you know, Sikh Art and Film Foundation has been in the forefront in the US for bringing a better understanding and awareness of Sikhs through the medium of arts and films. We have been hosting a film festival for the past 17 years. We have sponsored exhibition at the prestigious museums. We are doing the Leadership Summit for the past 10 years. And I'm very grateful to a great team of patrons, chairs, directors, and volunteers who work with all sincerity and dedication to make all this happen. And to all of you who have been supporting us for the last so many years. I am very grateful to my friend, Ajay Banga, for his guidance and support for all these years and his dedication in helping build bridges between Sikhs and non-Sikhs, which is very much needed in today's world. Thank you, Ajay. I also like to thank Mitch Barnett and Cushman and Wakefield for sponsoring the Leadership Summit and supporting us for so many years. Thank you, Mitch. We are facing very challenging times, with millions of people infected with the deadly virus, as well as over 1 million people who unfortunately have lost their lives. Our prayers are with everyone who have been affected by this deadly virus. My friend Ravi Arora has picked up a very relevant topic, which he rightfully said, navigating crisis and building trust. When we're looking forward to our very impressive panelists, we're anxiously and awaiting to hear from them in this very important time, especially in this current topic that we are facing as of today. At this time, I would also like to introduce our keynote speaker, our Attorney General of the great state of New Jersey, Gurbir Grewal. Attorney General Grewal was confirmed by the New Jersey Senate on January 16, 2018. He is the first Attorney General in the US history, and we're extremely proud of him. Attorney General Grewal, after his confirmation, focused to make lives better for the residents of New Jersey by expanding affirmative litigation, strengthening police-community relations, reducing violent crime, and fighting the opioid epidemic. Before becoming the Attorney General, he served as the prosecutor for the Bergen County, which is the biggest county in New Jersey with a home to over 1 million residents. Attorney General Grewal graduated cum laude with a degree in Bachelor of Science from the prestigious Georgetown University School of Foreign Service. He also went further to do his law from the School of William and Mary Marshall White School of Law. Gurbir and his wife Amrit are parents to 3 lovely daughters. Please join me in welcoming Attorney General Gurbir Grewal, and thank you all.
Everyone, I'm New Jersey Attorney General Gurbir Grewal. Thank you, Tajinder, for that very kind introduction. And many thanks to everyone at the Sikh Arts and Film Foundation for inviting me to open today's Sikh Leadership Summit and to speak about how my Sikhi has shaped my career, particularly in moments of crisis. A theme reflected in the title of this summit, Navigating Crisis and Building Trust. While I regret that we can't have this conversation in person, I am thankful that we are having it in this virtual setting, because it's an important one to have during these unprecedented times. So if we were meeting in person, I'd ordinarily start with the Preet Bharara joke, something highlighting how I've yet to win an award he didn't already win, or, as is the case today, speak at an event that he didn't previously keynote. Because I know jokes don't work in this type of forum, I'll get right to the point. And the point is this: when it comes to Sikhs in public service, especially in leadership positions across government, there are not a lot of us out there. Not a lot out there to inspire the next generation to answer the call to public service. But here's the thing, there should be, because service, because addressing inequality and fighting injustice so naturally align with our Sikh values. Listen, I don't mean to suggest I have everything figured out, because I certainly don't. And my path hasn't exactly been linear. But that's because finding one's passion is not always a smooth arc. You see, while I've spent the majority of my professional career in public service, first as a federal prosecutor, then as a county prosecutor, and for the last 3 years as New Jersey's Attorney General, the Chief Law Enforcement Officer and the Chief Legal Officer for a state of 9 million, it took me some time to find my calling. You see, at first, I wanted to major in English and be a writer, which, if your parents are anything like mine, didn't go over so well. Then I transferred colleges because I was sure at that moment I wanted to become a foreign service officer, a diplomat. And when that didn't work out for me, I eventually settled on law school. But just as I was getting started in law at a large law firm in Washington, D.C., the September 11th attacks took place. And that day, and the events that followed, forever changed my career trajectory. At the time, I remember watching our country come together in the face of unspeakable tragedy. It was like no other moment in my lifetime. We were united both in grief and in anger. There was a surge of patriotism, a patriotism that my family and I felt, that all of us as Sikhs felt as deeply as our neighbors. But if you're old enough to remember, there was also a darker side. People who looked or believed differently, people like us, were targeted by some. In my case, it was constant harassment. But others were not so lucky. They were assaulted. And some, like Balbir Singh Sodhi, were even killed. And in those moments, I saw reflections of other dark chapters in our nation's history. I saw how easily fear could overtake our sense of decency. And I began to understand how a country as great as ours could allow discrimination and hate to fester and to grow. So even as I felt a deep love for this country, the only country that has ever been home for me, I also felt a deep desire to help make it the best version of itself. I knew that there was no better way for me to do that, to give back, to serve, and to stand up for others, to express my Sikh values, than to become a part of law enforcement. You see, I not only wanted to confront the injustice that I was seeing around me, I also wanted to promote understanding through my work, to lead by example, and to show that Sikh Americans are just as much a part of America and a part of keeping it safe as anyone else. So I left my job at that law firm, and I joined law enforcement as a federal prosecutor, which set me on the path to where I am today. And I haven't looked back since. Now, I share these experiences for several reasons. First, I want to highlight the need for each of you, our next generation, to be resilient in the face of any crisis. Whether that's a COVID-19 pandemic and all of the related challenges, or something more personal to you. Know that your journeys are just beginning, that you too may encounter obstacles or adversities you never anticipated or could have imagined. But when one door closes for you, don't be afraid to change course and open another one. Don't be afraid to follow a path you never before considered or even thought was possible for you. Always be open to new opportunities and possibilities. And remember, enjoy your journeys and know that you'll find your callings. Now, the second reason I share these experiences is because I feel that nearly 20 years after the events that set me on my public service journey, we're at an even deeper inflection point in our country's history. You see, we find ourselves at the intersection of two pandemics. On the one hand, our lives have been uniquely altered by the COVID-19 global pandemic, which I just touched on. And on the other, we're confronting a national pandemic of systemic racism, one that has laid bare racial disparities in education, in housing, in healthcare, in the environment, and in my case, in law enforcement and across our criminal justice system. The truth is that none of these inequities and injustices are new. They've been plaguing our country for over 4 centuries, from slavery to Reconstruction, to Jim Crow, to mortgage redlining, to the war on drugs and mass incarceration, to the killing of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and unfortunately countless others before, between, and since. And this history and these recent events remind us that our country has a long way to go, not only in healing our nation's racial divides, but also in addressing the systemic and implicit biases that affect so many Americans. And the reality is that all of us, no matter if you're in government like me or in private industry like today's speakers, we do our work against this backdrop. And all of us have an obligation to acknowledge and to address this history. And that's what I've been attempting to do in my role as Attorney General. You see, we're acknowledging that systemic racism. We're acknowledging that it exists, that those inequities abound, that many have been traumatized by these experiences. And we are working to address that trauma when it comes to policing and the criminal justice system. We're doing so by enacting some of the most sweeping policing and criminal justice reforms in the country, by creating new systems to prevent these outcomes moving forward, and by accepting that more work still needs to be done. And that's where each of you come in. I'm not saying that each of you need to drop what you're doing right now, quit your high-paying jobs, and immediately answer the call to public service. No, I'm not saying that at all, because I realize that everyone's path is different. And I also don't want to turn off every Sikh parent who's encouraging their child to become a doctor or an engineer or another professional. After all, not just because I want to be invited back here for future Sikh leadership summits, but because service to others and professional or financial success are not mutually exclusive. But what I am saying is that in this moment, more than any other in our lifetimes, this moment requires us to fully live our Sikh values in whatever space or workplace or role we may occupy. And it means living our lives in the image of the Sansapai, our gurus, envisioned for each of us. And that, to me, means all of us collectively pushing for equality and inclusion wherever we can, collectively pushing back against injustice and intolerance wherever we see it, and all of us relentlessly pushing forward for a fair and just society for all, at all times. And that also means all of us working to lift up and protecting the least among us. And that, to me, is how we will navigate crisis and build trust. So I thank you again for the invitation. Please enjoy the 10th Annual Summit, and I hope to join you for a future summit in person.
Thank you, Thank you very much, Attorney General Gariwal, for those very inspiring remarks. And as you mentioned, this moment in time requires us to fully live our values, pushing for inclusion, equality, a just society, and lift those in need amongst us to navigate crisis and build trust. Hello, good morning, good evening, and Sat Sri Akal, everybody. My name is Arshi Kaur, and I'm a student in New York City. It is now my pleasant duty to introduce our moderator for today, Dr. Mandeep Rai, who will host the panel discussion on navigating crisis and building trust. Dr. Rai is a global authority on values, working with companies, institutions, and individuals around the world, as well as author of The Values Compass, What 101 Countries Teach Us About Purpose, Life, and Leadership. She has traveled to more than 150 countries and reported as a journalist for the BBC World Service and Reuters, amongst others. She began her career in private banking at JP Morgan and later worked for the United Nations, the European Commission, and grassroots NGOs. Dr. Rai has studied and graduated from the London School of Economics, the London Business School, and also spent a year at Harvard Business School and MIT. She also holds a PhD in global values. As mentioned earlier, we want to make this an interactive session, so please do use the Q&A button on the top or bottom of your screen to post your questions for our panel. Dr. Rai, it's a pleasure, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope you can hear me. This is slightly unusual, but since we're in a pandemic and in a point of crisis, I'm going to confess I am 30,000 feet up in the air. I'm doing this from an aeroplane. The reason I share that with you is because I had my own little crisis earlier and wondered whether I could get on or whether I could make this happen. But actually, we are a group that make things happen. So I really appreciate the Sikh Arts. I want to thank them for allowing me to speak. And I also want to thank Ajay Banga for his support throughout. I am the author of The Values Compass, and it takes you to 101 different countries. I am just taking the last flight out of Greece right now, before Greece goes into lockdown, and landing in England. And it's a wonderful that we are spanning, literally, with our panelists, India, Europe, the West Coast, the East Coast, and that we're addressing the entire diaspora and the entire world of the Sikh population. So thank you. I really want to build on the comments that the Attorney Gariwal made in terms of the Sikh values. The Values Compass is actually written and based upon those Sikh values, in that each and every country has been distilled into a distinct value, such as respect. How is it practiced in Japan, for example? How is faith practiced in India? How is solidarity practiced in Madagascar? I believe that society or people want to evolve into their very best selves, but how that happens is often determined by our context, by our social, geographical, political context. But each of those values that I mentioned are all in the Gurbani. And I want to, by building on Attorney Gariwal's points, I also remember facing racism, growing up in a small village in Gloucestershire, and having bars on the window because we would have petrol bombs thrown through the windows. I remember being in New York and reporting during 9/11 and seeing the spread of racism and the attacks that happened to the Sikh population. But as we know, racism and injustice and crisis and pandemics don't just happen to Sikhs, they happen to everyone. And that was the reason I took a job in the Middle East at the time when there was such a backlash towards the Islamic population, even more than the Sikh population after 9/11. And we built the first media venture capital fund. Now, when I think about all those values, actually, I know that each and every one of our panelists that are coming on, the reason that they are the leaders that they are because they espouse and hold true to some core values. What my book does is help you go through your own values so that you can figure out what really matters to you, what you truly stand for, and live life according to your values. Now, holding 101 different values is difficult, but holding a key 5 and prioritizing those 5 so that they can actually be actionable. And I'm sorry if the audio is difficult. We are dealing in a time of crisis and I'm going to lead through a march on. But at each and every time, that each and every point, whenever we are thinking about our lives, we have to think about it in chunks of time. Maybe we'll think about it for the next 2 years as we're going through this pandemic. Maybe we'll think about it in a chunk of time as we're raising our children, or as we're looking after our sick parents, or as we're leading in an organization, or as we're serving for our community. Whatever that period of time is, I'll wait for a moment because I think the audio is difficult. It's the captain speaking. This will be done in just a second. And then we'll get into our discussion.
I'll speak to you a little bit later on as we close out to Heathrow, give you an updated time of arrival. And
that's it.
Say to you, we have made arrangements.
Well, may I? Oh, good. My voice is clear. Fantastic. I just want to say that as this discussion ensues, please feel free to put your questions forward, and we will endeavour to answer as many as we can. We have a good period of time, so we can really your questions would be truly valued. And with that, all I finally wanted to say is that we really want this conversation to have you walk away as stronger leaders. We are all leaders in our own right, no matter what we're doing. And what I would encourage us to do is, one, prioritize our values. There's a process that I take you through that helps you do this. But once those values are clear, actually, in this moment of reset during the pandemic, people are making very big decisions as well as small decisions. And each and every one of those decisions are much easier to make when we are clear about what really matters to us and our own values. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce our first panelist, CEO of GoDaddy. Any entrepreneur would know GoDaddy. This is Mr. Aman Bhutani. Mr. Aman Bhutani, formerly also before GoDaddy, was the president of Brand Expedia Group. And before that, he was at JP Morgan, so we have things in common. And he studied in Delhi, then went on to his MBA in England at Lancaster, and then went on to work in Washington. He's also a board member of the New York Times. Then I would like to introduce you to Miss Kiran Kiki Kapani. She's the CEO of Kikem Media and an executive producer. She has produced and broadcast on national broadcasts, as well as foundations, not-for-profits, and for individuals. And she's told many profound stories. Her aim is for stories to make a true difference to our lives. This is something we also have in common. And so with that, she has won many awards, including Emmy Awards, Peabody Awards, and awards for her investigative journalism. One of those productions I'd like to share with you is a production called The Ornament of the World, where she looked at the relationship between Muslims, Jews, and Christians. And then last but not least, we have the managing director of the Cooperative Milk Marketing Confederation, more commonly known as Amul. Amul is a household brand now, one of India's largest FMCG groups, and has a turnover of over $7 billion annually, and represents 3.6 million farmers across India. I come from a farming background, so I definitely relate to this, and I know many of you will. And basically, they produce milk, and it's a very unusual company in that all the farmers actually share this cooperative. And so that is Dr. R.S. Sodhi. So without further ado, we will now have all of them. I hope you can see them on the screen. And I would like to start off with Mr. Aman Bhutani. Aman, could you please share with us your leadership story such that, and this is for every question, I would love for each of you, listeners, viewers, participants, to be able to walk away from this conversation with some actionable points. Leadership is not just in talking, it's in the doing. So I hope that after this conversation, you have something that you could share with people around you, maybe 3 times today before the end of the day. And those actionable points then hopefully feed into your life. So with that, Mr. Aman Bhutani, please share some of your leadership story.
Thank you, Mandeep, and Sat Sri Akal, everyone. And thank you to the Sikh Arts and Film Foundation for inviting me. My journey as a leader and growing as a leader is similar to many others. I think one word that would describe it is unexpected, because there were many unexpected turns and twists along the way. As a young leader, there were many things that I was hardworking, and I had grit, and I was lucky, and all the usual things that you might expect. And to put them all together, I guess, because of what my parents taught me, I felt, or I believed, that I could be anyone I wanted to be. And one of the things I wanted to be was a CEO of a public company. Little did I realize that I would have to stand up in front of an audience one day and live up to that belief. And it's been a journey of learning. When we're young, we can be anyone we want to be, but as we grow up, we can only be ourselves. And that means that we have to be more structured in the way we think about things. And as I told you that there were many unexpected twists and turns in my career, it became important to me to know what path to take when I had a fork in the road. And I don't mean a fork in the road in terms of the good path and the bad path. The fact is, in today's world, if you're on this call, if you're, working in the corporate world or running your own business, we live a life of abundance. We have at our disposal more than the generation before us had in many, many, many ways. So many forks in the road for us are between good choices, and it's tough for us to make them. And I came up with a way to think about that. And over the last few years, I've called it the soulmate test. And what this test helps you do is to decide what path to take. And each letter of the word soul stands for something. And it simply means the S is that you should always do something that you feel hungry for. And hunger is a real different emotion. It's different from motivation and passion, because either hunger and we all feel it equally, or you don't know it. And if you give me 24 hours, I'll get you there, right? You will know what that feels like. And you want to feel that hunger for what you're doing. The O is that there must be opportunity for all. Don't look for things that benefit you alone. Look for things that benefit lots of people, because that'll help you identify waves. Because good people, smart people, successful people, of course they work hard and they're lucky, but they ride waves. And that's a huge part of what makes them successful. And the way you can identify those is by looking for opportunities that impact lots and lots of people. The U stands for that you must bring something unique to the table, right? It's very, very important that the things you go after, that you have some competitive advantage doing that, because it will make a difference that you did them. And the L simply stands for learning, which is, if what you're going to do is not going to involve learning for you, then you'll never do the uncomfortable, and you'll never do the things that allow you to learn what you don't know how to do. So look for the things that allow you to learn. And that's what I've followed, is the soul test over the last few years. And it's done well for me. And over the years, I've sort of mentored a lot of people on it, and I see people make good decisions using a frame like this. I don't tell people use this frame. I tell them find your frame, look for the way you make your decisions, and that will hopefully start to define a part of your journey, especially as we get into the second and third phase of our life where we are productive and then we start to give back. So I'll turn it back to you with that.
That's fantastic. I love that acronym, and I think we can all utilize that. So thank you very, very much. Kiki, would you kindly share your learnings from your leadership story?
Of course, thank you. Wonderful to be here. I'm honored to be in the presence of Aman and Sodhi. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Rai and the Sikh Arts and Film Foundation for including me. Good morning, good evening, and Sat Sri Akal, everybody. My story can't be told without speaking about my father and my mother. Like many Sikh families, we have a very warm and tight and caring, loving family. My father's story sort of begins when a teacher told him as a young man that light traveled only in a straight line. And he made it his life's mission to prove the teacher wrong. He was convinced that light could in fact bend, and his determination to show just how it could do that led him to breakthroughs that helped give birth to fiber optics, a term coined by my father. He's also known as the father for fiber optics. He used the fiber optics in medical applications, lasers for surgeries, branched out to work on military and space applications for the Defense Department, data storage, telecommunications, and computer networking. He remains proud to this day that he was the first Indian and Sikh entrepreneur in the Valley, Silicon Valley, to take a company public. When we first came here, we were really the only Indians in the Silicon Valley, the only Sikhs. And there were no other real Indians to be found in the Valley, but my father wore his turban proudly and unapologetically. He raised us as American children, but he never let us forget what it meant to be Sikh. When I was growing up, my blood really ran strong with justice, civil rights, human rights. I really was lucky enough to know as a young child that I was going to be an attorney, and I wanted to make a difference in the lives of others. So I litigated, and eventually I came to meet my husband, who is a filmmaker, and I realized that together we could make a larger difference producing documentaries for public broadcasting, for Nova, for the Science Channel, Discovery. And our whole principle was that a true story, honestly told, can really change lives. We produced a number of documentaries on social and scientific issues and questions. The most incredible part of our work that gives it legs into communities are the outreach packages that are community discussion guides, lesson plans. I like to see impact. I like to see that people are using our films to make a difference, that it doesn't just air one day and then that's it for all the work. So we've used our films to create thought and action and hopefully make some real change. So unfortunately, we're talking about challenges in these days. And prior to the pandemic, I myself, my family, all of us faced a serious challenge. My husband died suddenly in December, and this loss has been devastating. But it seems this year has brought so much pain to so many. and since Michael and I were together so strongly committed to contributing to truth and greater good, I've continued on, like countless others, in spite of what the past year has dealt us. Leading the company while we lost my husband was difficult. I came to my office a few days after he had passed away, and I sat in the office and I really just closed my eyes and I thought, well, there's still a problem. There's still the need for truth and greater good. And I can't walk away from that, and he wouldn't want me to. And that's what Chardi Kala is. It's moving forward in the face of adversity and being fearless and using your powers for greater good. And I don't think that I've conquered anything or I've overcome anything, but it's helped me to move forward, to think about giving to other people. And that's the Sikhi in me. That's what I take such great pride in. And so we continue here and we make a difference. We are right now producing films on climate change, and they are going to be distributed by PBS. They'll be distributed by the National Science Teaching Association. We hope to inspire truth and also create better voters. So that's my story, and I'm thrilled to be with all of you.
Thank you so much, Kiki, and thank you for sharing something so personal and difficult. We all face crisis, but it takes a true leader to be able to share that. So I really am humbled by that, and thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sodhi, if I could also ask you for your leadership story and what we could learn from your key takeaways, that would be fantastic.
Thank you, Mandeep. Well, Sat Sri Akal to everybody from all over the world. I mean, this is the first time I'm getting this opportunity to speak to especially the Sikh all over the world. Well, as far as my story is concerned, I can't say it's a leadership. Now, when I look back in retrospect, it's called leadership story, but it's a very ordinary story. I can tell you that I'm very lucky that throughout my life for last 61 years, I had a very varied life. I mean, rural, urban, mixed type in different geographies, different atmosphere, and very differentiated. I mean, to start with, I was born in a small village in Punjab in Firozpur, had little education in the village, then shifted to Delhi during 1965 war, and then had in the government school, municipal school, my schooling. Then did my agriculture engineering from Rajasthan because of my background in agriculture, and then did my master's in rural management. Last 30 years, fortunately, I am working with my first company after college. It's Amul. I mean, when I joined this organization, it was a very, very small organization. I mean, if I give you the multiple in the business or in anything, must be around 100 times. And I think whatever little success I have got, if I to see that, I think first thing is that my exposure and my work in my village when I was used to work in the field. I mean, the type of work which we were doing in the 45 degrees centigrade temperature when harvesting the wheat or paddy plantation and standing in the water and working 12 to 14 hours. Then I look back, now whatever I work, I'm doing is nothing. It's a luxury. Even I work 10 hours in the office, in the field, on the market, it is a very, very small. Second, as I think is after joining Amul, when I was just 23 years old, I mean, computers were not there, even calculators were not there. And type of knowledge by working hands-on, right from accepting payment, depositing the bank, making invoices, making sales call. The hands-on training which I got that time is now I'm trying to see how much I've learned during that time. And I think a lot of risk I have taken, but I don't think that I mean there has been any problems in that. Another thing I think which I can say the reason for success, I believe in the teamwork. I mean, no individual is a leader unless a team is a leader. I mean, it's put together in your team, you become a leader. No doubt if you are the boss, so credit goes to you, but it is always the success of the team which makes you leader. If your team is not cohesive, naturally you will not be called leader. And I feel that leadership comes with the confidence, leadership comes with the hard work, leadership with the passion and the persistence, whatever you want to do it. And in any job, I think the reason is, I mean, a lot of people are there. I think the first 5 years of your career is very important. That make, break your career or your branding or your anything. And I think the first 5 years I worked in this organization really created the brand in this organization. That's why I could go up very fast. So this is the, short my story.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing that. And I'm going to delve into those 5 years a little bit later. And if I could ask you, given your route, given the fact that you've traveled the world as a Sardar and led some very big organizations as a Sardar, has it been difficult? And what could you say to our audience who are holding and keeping their identity? And how can they kind of, I guess, have it work for them?
Yeah, I could tell you a couple of stories about identity and how you choose to visualize your Sikh identity, which is a personal choice at the end of the day. I can tell you embarrassing stories. For example, traveling around the world and ending up in a hotel in Southeast Asia with, it was my parents, my brother, and I was pretty young at the time. And we were on a shoestring budget, so it's a tiny rundown hotel, and we get there in the middle of the night, and the guy behind the desk, he looks at us, and this is like you have to sign in on a register with a pen and no computers and such. He turns the register around, the thing around for us to sign in, but he just looks at us and we look funny to him, and he just starts laughing, and he can't stop laughing. And that memory is literally burned into my mind. In fact, he laughed so hard that somebody in the back had to come in. It was an older woman, and she had to push him into the back because he was bent over, double down laughing. What that experience taught me is that as I grew older, it's actually very, very hard to embarrass me. You could pretty much say anything and it won't embarrass me, because as a 13, 14-year-old, I got to face that in spades, just realizing that how different people deal with it. And at the end of the day, there's a couple of things I would say to you. If you choose to have the identity that makes you look different, then people will come, and people have come to me, and they will tell you that, look, are you sure you want to do this? Because you're going to be noticed, and you're going to look different from others. And if you do something wrong, nobody will forget. And that was a statement someone once made to me, that if you make a mistake, nobody will forget. And I thought about that question for a few minutes, and it, what came to my mind sort of just internally, very, very aggressively internally, was, I said, okay, but what if I do something right? Because if I do something right, nobody will forget me either, right? I think we have to, whether we're a minority, and this is not just true for Sikhs, whatever our situation, if we work from a position of fear, then we cannot really fully attack the opportunity in front of us. The fact is, we have so many gifts from God with each of us. Our talents are so broad. that we really do need to push forward. And of course, for those that push the boundaries, there will be moments when they are hurt, and there will be moments that will be difficult. But I don't think those moments should deter us from making the efforts. You know, as I grew up, my mom taught me, she said, you know, I'm going to treat people the way you want to be treated. Right? And that's super important. But when I moved to the West, I saw a moment where a friend of one of my very good friends, his cousin, she came from Japan to a host family in the US, and she got off a flight, and she told us the story later. She got off a flight, got home with the host family. She was super hungry, hadn't eaten anything on the plane. And the host family asked her, would you like something to eat? And she said no, because culturally in Japan or in Asia, you say no first once. Well, the host family was very American, and they said, well, she said no. She said, okay, well, here's your room. Why don't you go to sleep? And she went to sleep hungry, right? And I was reminded, I said, you know, you can't just treat people how you want to be treated. You have to treat people for how they want to be treated. And that was a learning for me growing up. But then I tell you, I got married, learned a whole new thing. Being a husband and a father taught me a new thing, which is you can't always know how people want to be treated. So you can't really treat people for how they want to be treated when you don't know how they want to be treated. Well, then you have to move to the next step, which is that you have to accept people for who they are. And it starts by accepting who you are. If you accept you for yourself, and whatever that choice is that you make for yourself, it doesn't matter. But if you start with accepting that, then you're so grounded and you're so confident in your own ability that if you face adversity because you're a minority, because of the way you look, because of gender, because of any reason, then you have the ability to push against it. Because at the end of the day, what matters is that what if you did something right? And then it'll make a difference.
I love that. That's very strong. I'm very grateful. Thank you. And I scribble down every time each of you speak, so I know our audience are getting a lot. Kiki, I know you have two young daughters. Well, young as in they're in their 20s now. What advice would you give the young people listening? What leadership skills do you think young people should focus on?
Well, I mean, I think Aman talked about many of them beautifully. You know, in my 63 years of life, my mother would kill me for saying my age. But, you know, I have to say life is going to throw obstacles, hurdles, pain, all of that at you. And here in the Silicon Valley, you know, failure is actually revered, right? But you have to realize that you must dust yourself off, tie your boots, and get up and keep walking forward, because there's so much in life. There's so many opportunities for us. And again, I'm going to say that Chardi Kala has been flowing in my blood. I think my brother Raj Kapani and I have been ingrained with this Sikh feeling of moving forward. You take your pain with you, but it doesn't mean that you can't move forward. And continuing to give to others and to produce is going to be the best feeling for you and the most healing, actually. One thing our mother used to say to us that I think is really important, and I always think of it as I'm working, is if you don't ask, you're not going to know. And it has guided me through so many business deals. And, you know, and I couch it with, I'm sorry, this may be a little abrupt or overbearing, but I also know that I should ask you. And, you know, 90% of the time out of 100, it's a really good question. So what I've learned from that also is, you know, in our office, everyone here is a student. We're Sikh, we're students. We have so much to learn from everybody. We're open to thoughts of others. I welcome collaboration and criticism. I love to listen to other people. There's no stupid question in our business. In fact, if you ask questions, I feel people are smarter. They're honing in, they're getting more focused about what the needs are. And I find it an incredible skill. So those are my thoughts. And I do watch our girls as they have been in terrible crisis since the loss of their father. They were very close to him. But one thing I have to share with you, which I'm so proud of, is they put their money together and they bought a Airstream, a little RV that they could tow on the back of their car. They went to Arizona and they worked on registering voters. And I saw them grieving so deeply, but taking the grief with them and doing something positive. And I have to tell you, that was good. That was success, right? That made me very proud. So
I
thank
love
you.
that. That's very actionable. And I love the fact that they helped with politics so firsthand. And I think it's true, as much as we can talk, if we're not actioning it, it doesn't hold. So thank you for sharing that. Saudi, can I ask you, I know Vand Ke Shako is very important in Sikhi, and I know that that's a principle that really Amol takes very seriously. Could you elaborate a little bit on the sharing structure? And even more importantly, I think education. How can we make sure that the focus on education, that we really focus on education to the point that we grow and prosper? Because I feel like often, well, if we don't have education, nothing will remain. So how can we focus on that?
Well, thank you, Mandeep. I'll answer your question, but first, I want to add one thing. What Aman was speaking about his experience about being a Sikh, and I mean, I'm very lucky that I had throughout my life very positive experiences or stories being a Sikh. I think because I'm basically now in a marketing organization, and generally marketing people talk about Philip Kotler type of marketing. But if you look back 350 years back, our Shri Guru Gobind Singh Ji created marketing when he created this logo of turban. Okay, and he created logo, he created positioning, and also he created product differentiation also, and jingle also, Bole So Nehal Sat Sri Akal. And the type of brand personality which leader has. When you say Sikh, means Sardar, means leaders. So who is unbiased, who is very humaning, who is very neater, as well as, I mean, he's reliable and very kind-hearted also, and fighting against injustice, what Attorney General mentioned. Now coming to the leadership, Amul and other thing, structure-wise, let me tell you, Amul is owned by 3.6 million very small and poor farmers. They started this organization 74 years back. Today is the third generation. And it is located in a small part of Gujarat, which is called Anand, but our plants are all over. But today, fortunately, because of our cooperative structure, today it has become India's biggest FMCG, fast-moving consumer good or food company with $7 billion turnover. And last 10 years, our annual growth rate, average annual growth rate is around 15%. The growth rate is 2 times more than any other Indian FMCG and food company. Why it is there? Now I'm coming to the Sikhi values, and then basically, like our Guru Nanak Dev Ji said, one day khao, distribute, and then you eat. Guru Nanak Dev Ji gave us 3 siksha. Karam karo, I mean work hard, wand ke khao, and naam japo. Wand ke khao means that, you see, it looks very simple, but it is the basic business concept. If you have it, no business can fail. In our language, we call it give more to earn more. Give more to your suppliers, give more to your consumer, what they expect, give more to your employees, and your business will prosper. And let me tell you, most of the people, most of the CEOs who are attending are there, their board has given them mandate. I mean, I'm talking more of financial language, keep maximum EBITDA or gross profit. And how you can create more EBITDA gross profit, because share value is dependent on that. You buy at minimum, you sell at maximum. So in between, you keep maximum. So you take maximum, you give less. But here the cooperatives, which is owned by very small poor farmers, having 2 or 3 animals, look here, their wisdom. There is no, we want business, we want to share wealth. We want to share the prosperity. Today, 3.6 million farmers, 1946 when we started with just 12 members, the value of share of 74 years back and today is same. They induct new shareholders at the same price. They allow them to share the brand. Today, Amul is the most largest brand and value, highest value-wise. But still, they don't want to take royalty from the new members because they want to share. And that is why they are growing. That is why competition is not able to come near us. All multinationals come to India. Everybody has come. But because of this, our business of sharing wealth. I mean, any CEO will say that buy at maximum, sell at minimum. You know what mandate has been given to me by the board and who are on my board? There are 19 board members, 18 are the farmers. I'm the only so-called professional or educated person. Okay. And you know what they tell me? You have to buy at maximum because owners are the supplier who are the farmers. You have to sell what we produce. In winter, we are producing 30% more. You have to buy it at the same price and you have to sell it. So you have to sell it as such a product, use such a technology, such brand that you can sell whatever we buy. So my performance is not measured by the bottom line. My performance is how much supply chain efficiency is created by keeping minimum EBITDA. And I think the one day how Guru Nanak Dev Ji concept is true for any business. And now, other things I think is very important for the today. I mean, like Mandeep mentioned, education, other thing. I think we get education. Education basically clears your concept and theory. But if you want to become leader, as you grow up, I have seen humbleness is the most important thing. And that also, our Guru said, Mat uchi mat ni. Mat uchi man niva. As you become humble, you will see all negativity is gone. And then like Attorney General said, fighting as an injustice, I think Guru Gobind Singh has told us, I mean, De Shiva var mohe, shur karman se kabu na daru, na taru varso jab lai laro, nischay kar apne jeet karu. I remember about 9 years back, I was facing uphill tasks. I was facing some very big politician, corrupt politician. I wanted to resign after working in an organization for around 30 years. But my mother told me that time, with this Shabbat Gurbani, that look here, you are working for those very poor people who do not have voice. What maximum can happen to you? They will throw you out, but at least fight it. And when I fought against that corrupt big politician, you won't believe, whole world came to my help. All bureaucrats, whole team. So what I think, these 3 themes of Gurbani, Vandike Khao, Mat Uchi Man Niva, and the Deshiva. I mean, these things are really make you a very, very successful leader.
I think we lost Dr. Rai for a minute here. So Ravi, are you there? Well, I wonder, maybe I'll help a little bit here.
Yeah, you can ask questions.
Okay, I was going to ask Aman and Sodhi, how has the pandemic affected your your business in particular? Has there been any serious impact?
Thanks, Kiki. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. At GoDaddy, we're in the fortunate position that we work with, like Dr. Sodhi said, lots and lots of very small businesses.
Yes.
These are people with a dream that they want to bring online. So with the pandemic, more of those people have wanted to bring their dreams online. So our business is not impacted as negatively as some of the other businesses. Of course, there are parts of our business where we sell higher value services. And by higher value, I mean a few $1,000s a year. On average, a GoDaddy customer pays about $160 a year for us in terms of revenue. So it's really small dollars across lots of people. The higher value offerings have suffered, and we've had to manage that change. But overall, we're very fortunate. We continue to work with lots and lots of what we call everyday entrepreneurs, because these are everyday folks that create stuff, that have ideas, that want to start small businesses. We call them micro businesses. And for one of our customers, a banner year is not $5 million or something. It's $50,000. If they make $10,000, it's a big deal. And we're excited to be able to support.
Have your employees been working from home?
All of our employees are working from home. In fact, we have set now publicly that they will work from home till the end of March at the minimum.
Yeah.
Because there's just a set of challenges. 2/3 of our workforce is what we call care, which is what other companies may call call center, but we don't like that word because we don't have agents with scripts. We have guides who help our customers. They don't have scripts. You call in, they just try to understand your business and help you with whatever you have. And everybody is working from home, and we'll continue to do that until things become a little bit better.
Right. Sodhi, what about your business?
I mean, like Aman mentioned, if in one word I have to tell, the COVID or lockdown is a positive, because fortunately we are in a business of food. And when I say our supply chain is C2C or B2C, cow to consumer or buffalo to consumer. So one side, so one side, the 7 million cows and buffalo did not stop producing milk because they were not under lockdown. And the other side, 1.35 billion consumer did not stop eating food. Rather, they were eating more sitting at home. And everybody knows during the lockdown, right from morning to evening or night, only one topic was common: what to eat, from where to buy, who will cook, which YouTube recipe, who will take pics and put on the social media. So we were lucky.
Yes.
And government also allowed to work this supply chain without any interruption. And we got all the permission and everything. And we ensured also that our milk, milk is very essential.
Yes.
And Amul is #1 brand all over India. So we have to ensure, like on 24th of March, when I announced 25th of March also, across India, milk was available. And in India, milk is not sold in the big supermarkets. You have to deliver at home.
Okay.
Millions of homes. So that really worked. In fact, sale of most of our pet product, branded product, increased 20 to 30% because people shifted more from loose or unbranded or unknown brands to trustworthy, available, visible, and affordable nutrition product. And milk matters that. In fact, our milk procurement also increased about 17%. So, but let me tell you, this COVID was also a time to build trust among your consumer. COVID was also used by us. So, to further strengthening the blind faith in our Amul brand. People have got we don't want loyalty, we don't want trust, we want blind faith, like I've got in Sikhism, where you don't question it. Why this, why that? And other than that is, lot of people stopped advertising or brand building. You won't believe, during 3 months of this COVID, we increased our advertising spend double, and we got very good bargains. And so our exposure was around 8 to 10 times more because we cost wise it was 1/5, 1/6,
Oh,
and
yeah.
very uninterrupted family viewing, uncluttered. So overall, COVID was good for milk production, COVID was good for milk consumption, COVID was good for visibility, and COVID was good for Amul and as well as consumers.
That's wonderful. That's good news. We were actually in the middle of producing a documentary for Nova on DNA, and we had our last shoot in Washington State where the first case of COVID death was known. And we basically got out of Washington State and got back to the office. Our business, investigative journalism, is an essential business. So my office is on one side of the office and the editor's on the other side. So we used a lot of PPE and managed to go forward. And in all honesty, I was so grateful because I'm the kind of person that needs to feel like I'm doing something. I'm not really that great at home cooking. So it was wonderful to be able to come to the office and continue the process.
Indeed. No,
Now, in
no.
our case also, not for a single day. I mean, we worked. I mean, we were working all throughout from the office. In fact, I
Yeah.
told half of my team to come 50% one day, 50% second day. 2 days it worked, and third day I find I have senior people in the office. They said, "Sir, work at office is better. The work from home and work at home."
Mm.
Great. So, thank you so very much. I think this is amazing insights. I don't know if we have Dr. Rai back or not, but if not, maybe I may, if I may, try to steer the conversation in one question that comes to my mind, that a lot of times we tell young professionals, to follow your passion, and you have now, especially I remember from my time when it was very stereotypical to be go after engineering or a doctor or a lawyer, those professions. That now there's such we try to promote such diverse experiences, for our next generation, right? To be able to, whether it's media, arts, culture, all over the place, and which is fabulous to see how much our youth today are pushing the boundaries in all these other disciplines. So one of the advice we always give to young professionals is follow your passion. Now, my question is, what happens and what's your advice when that passion turns to failure? Then what? I'd love any perspective from any of you on that.
Well, if I add in,
Yeah.
yeah, Ravi, I don't think passion is very important, but based on whatever life I had mentioned, I don't think in today's very changing and dynamic world, one should plan too much about the future, because
Yeah.
you don't know what will be the condition after 10, 20 years, and where you'll be working, what will be the economy of your country. And it is, I think, more about the opportunities anywhere you get, your destiny, as well as the no say now Guru ki mehr is very much required. That is required wherever you go, or we call it luck. But whatever, like your passion, whatever you want to do, whatever is given to you, the one thing which is very important is excellence. See, I'm in the marketing. I mean, born in a village, agriculture engineering, never thought I'll be working in the marketing. But as things came, you grabbed it. So otherwise frustration come, you start thinking, I'll become doctor, I'll become pilot, I'll become lawyer. And somehow you are not able to achieve, you get frustrated. But whatever you have chosen, whatever things are given, you should not be afraid of failure. That is what I feel.
I agree. I think I personally absolutely love what I do, and I don't feel like I'm working. honestly. We get to have an encyclopedic knowledge of each documentary that we do, and I'm thrilled about that. But my answer would be that, you know, you have to persevere. Like Sodhi said, you have to have resilience. That's also Chardikala. You have to be resourceful, maybe look at a different angle, and you know, rely on your roots. Our families, our Sikh families. When I was a kid, I was born in Chicago, and we used to go to India every year. And everybody I would meet was my auntie, my uncle, my auntie, my uncle. So I thought I was related to everybody. And I got this strong sense that nobody's going to mess with me. I've got this huge family. And I think that, you know, our roots are incredible. They give us so much strength. And I look at each and every one of you, and I see such admiration and respect you all. And I just think we have to go deep. You know, when one of the things you hear from Michelle Obama is, when you go low, you better go high, right? So I agree. I think that's right, Sodhi.
And I think for me, I do think it's important, like Kiki says, to do something you love. You know, my view has always been either love what you do or do what you love. Either way, don't complain. But this idea of following our passion, I think it's a really important concept, because it is taking hold across the younger generation in a way that's different from at least my generation. And there are three things that I would want the younger generation to remember when they follow their passion. One is, it's actually more important to find your passion before you follow it. And the second thing about it is that please don't, we humans are not one-dimensional. You do not have one passion.
Right.
In fact, you have many. Michelangelo was not just an artist, he was also a scientist. You know, be very, very careful of a system, whether it's an education system or whatever system. Be careful of a system that tries to tell you that you can only be one thing, and that thing is your passion.
Indeed.
In fact, you have many talents, and hence you have many passions. And the third is, if it is truly your passion, the only goal is to be very good at it. Mm-hmm. The Japanese have a term, they call it konin. You spend your life perfecting your craft. If you're spending your life perfecting your craft, failure is just the path to success. Like that, you know, that you actually absolutely want failure to happen, so that you know how you can perfect your craft, because you are the one that defines what success means for you. And if you put your energy into finding the passion first, realizing that you have many passions, and then, you know, committing yourself to perfecting your craft, what Dr. Sodhi called excellence, you know, that you are going to be successful. There's just no doubt about it. You know, I went to business school in Lancaster, and I applied for a job at a big company, and everything went well. And at the end of the day, due to a comment that I actually made about religion, I believe they rejected me from a group where I was top of the class. And I was okay with that, because what I had said, I believed in, right? But I had this friend, she was a finance director at the NHS. I'd met her in business school. She's at least 15 years older than me, much wiser than me at the time. I was super young, in my early 20s. And she said to me that day, she said, Aman, even if you get no job and you end up sweeping the streets, you'll do it better than others will. So don't even worry about it.
Very inspiring, Aman. Actually, you know, a lot of questions have come in, and one, while you're with us on this one, is if you can share more on in the SOUL acronym, because I think a lot of people want to hear a little more on that. You know, getting a lot of requests on that. So if you can kindly share more on that. Yeah.
Yes, I need to write about it at some point. It does seem to interest a lot of folks. It's basically a frame to help you decide what path to take, what job to take, what decision to take. Even if you're not changing companies, you're making decisions about where to put your energy on a regular basis. And the SOUL framework is supposed to help you, because we spend so much of our lives working and thinking about work that if what we're doing is not a soulmate, we're not living up to what we were born to live up to. And I truly, I have a statement. I say I choose to view the world from a perspective of abundance. Abundance means that you have choice. My father didn't have a choice. He came from Pakistan after partition. They lost everything. He was a refugee. He took, he studied to be an engineer and took the job as a typist in a jewelry store. Indians weren't allowed in that store. Only foreigners came in, and then his job was to type letters back to them and say, thank you for coming to our store. Come back soon. This is one of probably the brightest minds of his time, right? Because there were like 2 engineering schools in India at the time. So he did not have choices. I have choices. But with those choices comes a burden that I make those choices well, which is why the frame is important. Remember, S simply means that you do something that you are hungry to do, because it'll wake you up in the morning. Even when it's difficult, that moment that Dr. Sodhi talked about where he was up against all odds, I feel it's that hunger that he felt to serve his base, his stakeholders, the farmers, the small business owner who wanted to give rather than get. It's that hunger that allowed him to wake up. Of course, without his mother's direction, he may not have been able to pull the strength together, but that hunger did come from inside, from him, to keep him going. Opportunity for all, it's about, don't go for things that will benefit you and hurt others. That zero-sum game is going to give you short-term success, and then you'll be at the start line again and wondering what you should do. Look for waves. The way to look for waves is opportunity for many people. If there is opportunity for all, you will have that. And again, it's very close to what Dr. Sodhi talked about in terms of giving, in terms of, like the concepts he talked about. And of course, some of this comes from religion for me too. The Sikh religion is about learning. The Sikh religion is about equality, So these things come into how I think about things. The you is bringing something unique to the table, you bringing something unique to the table. When I took this job that I'm in, the maximum number of questions I asked the outgoing CEO and the chairman, why me? Why not somebody else? Can somebody else do this job better than I can? Right? Have you looked at other people? What were their competitive advantages versus mine? And I actually only took it once I was convinced that what I brought to the table was truly unique for what the company needed. And the L is learning. At some point, if life is abundant, if you are on this call, if you are able to talk and communicate to people, all over the world, please, we have to realize we live a life of abundance. Like, without learning, we can't improve. And if we're not learning, the job will be a dead end. The path will be a dead end. So as long as we're learning, we're going to do great, right? Kiki, I feel like underlying what Kiki talked about was learning. Underlying what Dr. Sodhi talked about is learning. Like, the word Sikh means learn. Student, it means student, literally, right? We are lucky that we are, although maybe this is controversial, I'm a believer that, deep in Sikhism is a choice. You're not born a Sikh, you choose to be a Sikh. But it means to be a student your whole life. When you agree to be a Sikh, you agree to be a student for the rest of my life. And I'm no expert on Sikhism, I'll just put that out there. I'm only grateful and lucky that my mother spent 40 years studying science, spirituality, and the Sikh religion. So I get the benefit of talking to her. I'm no expert myself, but if there's one thing I've understood from her is that being a Sikh is about committing to a life of learning, to a life as a student.
Indeed.
And that's leadership. You commit to learning about it for the rest of your life.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much for that, right? So another question that's come in, and especially now, how do young professionals and students just starting their career manage during this COVID times? Clearly the level of interactions are diminished, and as much as what brings us together in these work settings is to be able to share ideas and innovate, and that diversity that brings everybody together. It's virtual at the moment. So, and especially those who are just setting off on their careers at the moment, what advice would you, each of you, what advice would you give to young professionals and students just starting off at this point in time?
Well, I'll start. One thing I see in my business is, younger people relying a lot more on email. And I'm always asking them, can you pick up the phone? Because the communication, we can't see each other maybe, but talking to somebody, and I can't tell you how many times I've gotten this answer, well, I tried them for 2 weeks. And how did you try them? Well, I emailed them. Email's not enough. You have to pick up the phone. You have to make contact. You have to have a personal connection with somebody. They have to hear your voice, your warmth, your energy, your ideas, and you have to persist. And I'm always pushing my staff to do that, always. It's a tough time. I don't know if you, Sodi and Aman feel the same way, but I feel that the amount of work is ramped up during pandemic. I don't quite know why. I don't understand it, but everybody's just kind of running on a hamster wheel trying to keep up. I would have thought it would slow down, but because of that, I think you have to be very persistent.
Thank you.
If I have to add, I think I agree with Kiki that firstly, we have to be very, very positive. You see, I mean, I tell you business-wise and everything, productivity-wise also, because it has really enhanced many times. First, let me tell you, everybody, all the people who are just starting career, everybody will have career for around 40 years. And these few months is nothing. Please look into positive aspects and the opportunities given to us. And let me tell you, I feel that work output will increase more because firstly, travel stress is reduced. Unnecessary meetings are not taking place. You're not here wasting time here and there. I mean, if today, if you see, I have attended 3 big webinar meetings. One Rotary in Pune, one Ministry of Animal Husbandry in Delhi, and the night this. Otherwise, for these 3 meetings, in Indian meeting, minimum 2 days, morning starting at 4:30 to 10 o'clock. And for if I have to go to abroad, it takes 5 to 6 days. And I could work in my office also. I had the planning of new chocolate plant meeting at 6 o'clock in the evening. You see, I mean, those are the things. I think one should not feel depressed. One should look at the colors of the life, color of family bonding, color of cooking at home, color of chatting with the friends, color of learning new things on the webinars. I mean, these are the things. This opportunity will not come again, let me tell you. Let us look at the positive aspects of this. My 2 daughters, if you see, they are with us for the last 8 months. In between, they may go to young elder one to in-laws, etc. And I know next total number of days spent here will be more than the next 15, 20 years they'll be spending with us. So those are the positive aspects.
Yeah. I love the idea of focusing on the positive. I think it's super important because the mental well-being is sort of even more important now than physical well-being. In terms of productivity, I think it's a bit mixed. I totally agree with the travel and, like I'm way more productive. I can do a lot more things. But I also see the challenges for some of our employee base where they are actually more productive in the office. If they're doing sales on the phone, they just don't feel the energy and they don't have the equipment set up. And, or for a lot of young folks, they're in a small apartment or they share an apartment with a couple of other people and they're on the phone and their friend is on the phone. And it's just very, very difficult for them to be productive and work in the manner that they want to work. But back to sort of the original question, Ravi, that you asked, I know it's hard for young people because so much of starting out a job you learn by being around other people. It's those easy opportunistic interactions that teach you how to behave, that teach you the stuff they don't teach you growing, in school. But what I'm grateful for is that this generation is much better than me, and I think many of them at the virtual stuff. They are much stronger digitally than we ever were. And, fortunately, the digital tools are becoming better and better and better, right? A year ago, we would not have been able to do this over Zoom with the confidence that we're doing now, right? And I think the younger generation is well placed to almost lead the way and show us how they're going to use these digital tools to make up for those gaps. And honestly, what we have to do is be there and be ready to, just guide and coach in the same way that we would have if they just run into us in the hallway in the office.
Right.
Indeed. So, I think we are coming to perhaps the last 8 to 10 minutes of our program for the panel Q&A. So a couple of quick questions, if I may. So I know, Dr. Sodhi, you mentioned about the time that you had that big challenge about the politics that 8 to 9 years ago that you alluded to. So I'm wondering, Kiki or Aman, if you can share any situation where you've had to make difficult decisions in life that may not have been very popular. So another question, and Dr. Sodhi, feel free to weigh in as well. Yeah. So any kind of decision that you feel that were unpopular, and how you navigated that.
Yeah, I feel like as a senior leader, there are a lot of decisions that become unpopular and are challenging. There are a lot of mistakes made over the years. One of the most consequential ones was that in my previous role, part of my role, I was a technology leader, but part of my job was on the M&A side. And the company was deploying hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in capital buying travel companies around the world. And we were working with a specific target. I won't mention the specifics, but we were working with a nice sized public company that was doing okay. They were suffering for scale, and travel was growing with global players. And there was a set of challenges in terms of whether we should do the acquisition and how we should integrate. And at the end of the day, we sat in a small room with 8 to 10 the most senior leaders, and our CEO asked one by one, and he said, yes or no, should we do it? And I was one of the strongest yes voices. And honestly, there were many big, strong no voices for good reason. And my reasons were good too. And the CEO ultimately decided to agree with me. We went into that acquisition. We executed a plan that I had built. And it didn't fail spectacularly, which I would have preferred to some extent, but it failed. The plan did not execute the way we wanted, right? Now, at that point, we spent hundreds of millions of dollars. The return is not there. I'm answerable to the board for it, right? But what we really focused on, we truly did believe in the plan we have. And what we found is that we had made a critical mistake in a couple of core assumptions that we did not understand because we were not in business in that part of the world. That we missed something about that local context that was very, very unique, and we hadn't seen it anywhere else. And we completely failed to do that. What we did is we worked super hard to take that learning, and not just the specific learning, but the broad learning into our system. And after that, I think the 2 years after that, I helped the company spend 2 to 3 times that amount of money. And we were incredibly successful. And it was partly because we failed at that first one. Not the first one, but at the second one. So.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
In our business, in the television production business, we have been, we work with a broadcaster who has funded one of our documentaries. And, in my business, there's creativity and there's poetic license. So when the broadcaster suggested that we make a change that didn't sit well with my team, I had to impress upon them that the client's always right, and their creativity was beautiful, but the client's always right. And we're going to we're going to be gracious and humble and do it their way, even though it didn't suit the program as much as we wanted to go a different route. It worked. And I got sneers, and that's an important point too, that you do have to be gracious when you're a work for hire. You're working with a client that has paid you. They're always right, and you have to just work with them on it, and possibly make some suggestions, but do it very graciously and humbly, and accept what they decide at the end. So that was a big one. And obviously in my litigation career, many decisions I made, my clients were not happy with. Law is a whole different story. But I think you have to find the right the right root in your heart and just stick with it.
Great, great.
Okay. Ravi, being in the food business, we become always unpopular whenever we increase the price of milk.
Of course.
In the eyes of consumer, in the eyes of urban biased media. Other side, farmers feel happy, but no media will cover them. I'll tell you about 6 years back, we increased price of milk in Delhi. I got call from the top top politician of Delhi, ruling government, that look here, Mr. Sodhi, you are increasing price. In Delhi, elections are there after 30 days, and the chief minister is very unhappy. So I said, oh, you please give me her number, I'll talk to her. So you can understand when I say her. Okay, so I called her. So immediately she said, Sodhiji, I'm going to lose election because you increase the price of milk in Delhi, and Delhi is very sensitive. But I said, madam, look here. If we are increasing 2 rupees price to the consumer, we have increased 1 rupee 80 paisa price to the farmer. So whatever we are going to charge from the consumer, it is going to the farmer. She asked me, is it so? Yes. So she said, how can you inform the consumers? I said, I'll take a half-page advertisement in all the major English newspaper, Hindi newspaper, and we'll inform the consumer. So next day we took the newspaper ad that we are increasing, and this money is going to the farm. That communication in case of unpopularness, I think it is very, very. You should not stop communicating with everybody. Recently, I tell you, just about 1 year back exactly, government of India had more or less decided about RCEP and signing the RCEP. And dairy was the big thing. When we came to know, we understood that whole government is the minister is in favor of this. We said we have to become unpopular because an employee of farmers, you have to see there. So we literally resisted. We criticized all the friends. And let me tell you, and we communicated with political bosses, the bureaucrats, we communicated with the farmers, we communicated with the media. Yeah. And within 3 months, the whole thing changed. Not only dairy was kept out, India refused to sign RCEP. I think when such thing comes unpopular, you have to communicate. Recently, just 1 week back, we have started even more war because just I'll take 1 minute. The war against the so-called the big fat in the world is vegan food. There's no nutrition. 1/10 or 1/5 nutrition compared to milk is a superfood, and people are talking it's a cruelty, this, all this. So we have started 1 week back, and what we are using communication. I think that is the only solution.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I think since we are at time, if I may just pose the last question to you all. And I'm thinking about, I personally have been very privileged to be working for MasterCard, which is headed by Ajay Bangaj. And, one of the things that I know as a great leader, he has always inculcated in us in the organization and everyone, is this whole concept of doing well and doing good, right? Because that is, and I think it relates, one can relate it back to all of our values, right? And I think that's so very important. And I know he talks about decency quotient as well a lot, instead of just the IQ and EQ, and as to the importance of that. And I'm sure we'll probably hear from him later as part of his closing remarks. So my question in the final takeaway, perhaps if a minute to minute and a half each, if you all can take, is on what role mentors may have played in your success, and what is the maybe 1 or 2 the points that you would like the listeners today to take away from today's session, and what would you like them to take forward and live as part of their daily lives, and to help them poise for success? Kiki, how about you, Courage? Yeah.
So in terms of mentors, I must really say that my mother and father were the first people that I saw in a very, kind of American white area, being very proud of who they were. And it would make scratch my head and think, well, I'm the darkest thing here. And the people were so kind to us. At that time, it was very different. We were sort of celebrities in a way because we were so different. But I remember seeing my father get up every morning and tie his turban. And I used to lie on the bed and watch him tie his turban. I watched my mom put her sari on, and they'd go out into this world and hold themselves high. And that, what better way to be raised, right, in this area. It made me feel that especially with my father in the Silicon Valley, raising funds from Bank of America for his first startup, and working with Hewlett Packard to get money, and so on. I saw him continue and continue and continue, and I got it. I got it. When I told him I wanted to be a lawyer, he said, "Oh my God, we'll never get you married." And I said, "I'm sorry, it's in my blood." But I think the feeling of knowing you can go out and do anything you want to and try and keep trying and keep trying came to me as from both of my parents. And then, I have to credit my husband. He was the filmmaker in the family, and he had an incredible brilliance, intelligence, but so much humility. And he had so much respect for everybody's contribution in collaborating and critiquing. And so I have to say that that really, was something I admired and I looked up to so much, and I hope I've learned from it. But I'll tell you, in terms of how to move forward in this world, what I hope for everybody is they learn to handle all the tremendous losses they're going to experience. This is life, and we're all going to have them. And we have to inhale deeply and accept everything that life throws at us. And, then you've got to pull yourself up. You have to take risks. You have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations and just breathe, and you'll get through it. And that's my hope, is that everybody takes every opportunity in front of them.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kiki.
Sure.
That's insightful. Dr. Sodhi, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, as for the mentor, I think I'm very fortunate that I got the mentorship of Dr. Varghese Kurian, the father of white revolution. And from him, I learned two things. To achieve any purpose, you have to give your life. He was from one of the best families of India, masters from Michigan, and came to a small village called Anand, 5,000, populated in 1949, and worked here throughout his life. And that is why what India is today, India is today world's largest producer of milk. We are double than the USA. We used to be 1/3 in 1975. Now double than that. And second is the values. Lot of values people talk, but two values he used to give maximum emphasis was integrity and excellence. I remember when our recruitment was taking place, we asked him one question. That, "Sir, what you look for when you recruit a new fellow?" And he answered, "I look for three things: integrity, integrity, integrity." He said, "I know you are from a good management institute, your IQ is good, your academy, but what will make you different is the integrity." And lastly, I want to tell to all the people, one takeaway, no doubt I've spoken a lot of things about hard work, patience, passion, everything was. But in today's life, you really want, relationship is most important. And anybody here, please forget about past. Don't have any prejudice. Don't keep any fights, unhappiness, not good experience. Always start a new relationship. Be humble. And I have seen my life. People were very critic to me, were totally against me, who wanted to remove me, and they want to keep because you're totally forgotten what they have spoken against you or done you. You always make new beginning relationship, and you will find you have very few people against you.
Amanji.
Yes, I am. My view on mentorship is that it's a sort of scope and time boxed relationship. The mentors we should find are the people who are good at the things that we want to learn. And I think that if I look back at the last, 40 plus years of the mentors I have, I could count you more than 100 people that I have learned little things from. And sometimes you learn in person and you have a relationship with someone over 8-10 years and they teach you things by doing them. And sometimes, you learn something because you read a book or you saw something in a film and it sort of makes an impact to you. In terms of leadership, the one principle that I've held above everything else for the last, I think, 18 years now is from a book called Monday Morning Leadership. And the simple statement in that book is to be a better leader, be a better person. And at the end of the day, that is how I judge my own actions. At the end of the day, the only thing I have to ask myself was I the better person? And not better than somebody else.
Yes.
I have no room to compare with anybody else in the world. The only person I'm trying to beat is the person I know best, which is the person I was yesterday. So all I'm looking for is was I the better person today than I was yesterday? And if I am, then I fundamentally believe that I will be the better leader, that there's no case in which I won't be better than the leader I was yesterday. So I'll leave you with that one principle that I think really underlines a lot of things for me.
Such strong nuggets from each of you. I can't thank you all enough. I think Dr. Rai is back as well with us. And, once again, I think we can continue this conversation for hours at length. I'm sure we have so many of people that are still posing so many questions, and we could carry on. And I'm mindful that in India, I think it is getting close to midnight, I think, Suriji, for you, I think.
Yeah. 40 minutes to midnight.
Okay. So, and I think we could keep going on and on, but I would like to once again, with deep gratitude, thank each and every one of you. And Mandeep, you're back. So thank you very much as well for leading such a fabulous session and moderating that. And with all the challenges, you still were with us, so that's fabulous.
Yeah.
And
I wanted to say a huge thank you, one, for having me, and two, this was literally the last flight I could have got. Otherwise, there was no way I would have been on a flight for a panel like this.
And then face
so I'm
lockdown, right?
very sorry.
So, and I think that technology brought us all together, right? And from around the world. And so, again, with deep gratitude to each and every one of you for taking time and sharing such deep insights. We will, of course, have the recording of today's session available on our website. And what we'll also do is send an email once that's available to all those who registered so they can see that. And with that, I would like to turn the podium back to the young, dynamic Arshi Kaur with us. And thank you so very much again. And I'll be back. Then we'll go on for some closing remarks from Mr. Ajay Banga. And post that, we will complete the session. So thank you. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Arshi, over to you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much, Dr. Rai, Ms. Gapani, Mr. Bhutani, and Dr. Sodhi for sharing your insights and inspiring us with your personal perspectives on navigating crisis and building trust. Listening to you, I think it's clear that one has to find power by digging deep into our core values. And each of us need today to tap into the opportunities presented each day and think about the impact we can genuinely have on the world and be agents of change. So thank you very much again. We move now to the final segment of today's program, and it's an honor to introduce a visionary leader who is well known globally, the CEO of MasterCard, Mr. Ajay Banga. Ajay was awarded the Padma Shri Award by the President of India in 2016, the Ellis Island Medal of Honor in 2019, and the Business Council for International Understanding's Global Leadership Award. He is a fellow of the Foreign Policy Association and was awarded the Foreign Policy Association Medal back in 2012. Ajay is a co-founder of the Cyber Readiness Institute and served as a member of President Obama's Commission on Enhancing National Cybersecurity. He is also chair of the International Chamber of Commerce and serves on numerous other boards. Ajay is a founding trustee of the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum and is chairman emeritus of the American India Foundation. Ajay is truly an inspiring leader who has always reinforced the importance of doing well and doing good as the highest form of leadership. And it is only due to his commitment and support right from the inception that we are able to host the annual Sikh Leadership Summit. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Ajay Banga.
"2020 is a year like no other. Lives and livelihoods have been completely and totally upended by the pandemic, by natural disasters, and of course, exacerbated by social inequities. And these are all converging at a time when global relations are fracturing and economies are faltering. I think what the pandemic has shown us is that our lives are actually deeply intertwined and interconnected. What affects one impacts us all. Now, without childcare and schools, it's harder for parents to work or for the next generation of potential leaders to move forward. Necessary health restrictions have hobbled small businesses and global supply chains alike. Economies big and small are suffering as a result. I wouldn't blame anybody for feeling like we're all stuck right now, but we're not stuck. And as the New Jersey Attorney General Gurbir Grewal said at the beginning of today's gathering, we are at an inflection point, and to me, there's a choice that comes with that inflection point. You can hide under a rock, let the forces at play do what they want with you, or you can stand up and be a guide in how we recover. So of course, what I'm saying is, don't hide under a rock. We have an extraordinary opportunity to build back better, but we need you, actually all of you, to step up now. And I'm going to tell you how that's possible. First of all, you are not starting from scratch. Mahatma Gandhi set the tone for this 100 years ago, at a time that was riddled with just as much strife and turmoil and technological change and incredible opportunity. And among his many wise beliefs are two that are particularly important right now. And the first was the idea that everything we have is on loan to us from our children. So we must hand over to them at least as it was handed over to us. And the second is that our role in this handover is as a trustee of the wealth we've been handed, no matter how big or small. And as good trustees, we must find ways to grow and spread that wealth and make it work for the communities we serve today, as well as, importantly, the generations to come. So at MasterCard, we have taken this to heart. We have used the strengths of business, our competitive and our innovative nature, and put them to work building commercially sustainable products, services, and partnerships that also support social impact. We have put our capabilities to work towards financial inclusion and inclusive growth. We've found ways to help small businesses run online and shopkeepers build the credit track records required to get the capital they need to grow. We've worked with governments to digitize and secure disbursements so people get all of the money due to them. In short, we've taken the payments technology we have, but we've made it work for an ever-widening portion of the world. And we've managed to achieve this because we've taken good care of our employees as well. We celebrate their diversity. We've helped them build out their financial resilience and supported their well-being. So in that same time frame that we're just talking about, MasterCard has grown from a company with a 20 billion market cap to a little over 300 billion market cap today. So we've shown that it is possible to do well by doing good. The great news is that MasterCard is not the only company looking at the world this way. And I'm not the only one thinking through the mechanics of the values, the policies, the practices that set up everyone for success in the long run. So here's where all of you come in. Those of us who have done this work so far, we don't need you to walk in our footsteps. We actually need you to take the baton and run with it. Take the inroads we have made, go further with them, build them better, stronger, and spread them wider to help more people. Second, there's a way of thinking that can serve as a guide for all the choices that lie ahead. And to me, it all comes down to seeing the way things are and the way things can be through a triangle of considerations. On one side, there's one versus many. This is about how we act inclusively, how we bring together people of all genders, races, religions, backgrounds, and orientations. Give them a level playing field. Let them work to their strengths. On the other side, there's humanity versus nature. This is about how we address ecological issues, how we take the time to find the options that don't ask for trade-offs between the needs of people and the needs of the planet. Those needs are actually one and the same. We need to recognize that and make choices that support both. And at the foundation of the triangle, underpinning both sides, is the ultimate question of long-term versus short-term. That's how we gauge the real impact of our actions. We have to stop focusing on the solution that gives us a personal win in the short term and really start focusing on the systems and partnerships that give everyone the opportunity to grow and succeed in the long run and make the planet a better place for all of us. When we take this prism and we put it up next to the idea of being a trustee of the wealth for our communities and the generations to come, you'll see what you have to do. You have to get ready to lean in hard to be the very real and very present leaders the world needs right now. And finally, remember, you have the power in you to lead this change right now. You all have extraordinary IQ. This year alone has put you through the paces of cultivating your EQ, your emotional quotient. Well, now's the time to bring your IQ and your EQ together with your inherent DQ, your decency quotient, and do what needs to be done. Your DQ is what helps you to see how everything is connected. It also helps you to see the points where needs are most dire. But it's not enough on its own. We must also do. Leonardo da Vinci wrote once about the utter urgency of doing, that knowing is not enough, we must apply, but being willing is not enough, we must do. So let your DQ guide you and then do whatever it takes to make sure that whatever comes next is not built on fear, distrust, or extended and entrenched isolationism, but rather built on creativity, on connectivity, and most importantly, on mutual benefit. Because that's how we build back better. That's how we create long-term gains for everybody, like inclusive growth and ecological sustainability. And that's how we're going to be able to set up our children and their children and their children to succeed long into the future. So 10 years ago, we started this leadership series as a way to find our voice and to share it. We sought to educate the world about who we are as Sikhs through our culture, our art, rather than politics and religion. But now at this very moment in time, it is time for us, all of us, Sikh, Jew, Indian, American, man, woman, black, purple, green alike, show the world what we believe at the core of our being. We must step forward as trustees of what we have been given and start charting the course for how we take care of it in a way that we hand over a better world and better systems to the generations to come. There is not a moment to lose. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Ajay, for those very inspiring remarks. And as you said, there is not a moment to lose. And we all have an extraordinary opportunity to build back better, the power to lead this change. And now's the time to bring, as you said, our IQ and EQ together, coupled with the decency quotient, and do what needs to be done. No, we could not have embarked on this journey of our annual Leadership Summit series if we did not have your leadership and support right from the very inception of this program. So for that, we truly remain grateful. You know, there is an Indian proverb that I came across that probably sums up today's session very well. I think it says, tell me a fact and I'll learn. Tell me a truth and I'll believe. But tell me a story and it will live in my heart forever. And I think all of you will probably agree that we heard so many compelling stories today and so many inspiring stories from all of our speakers. So a very big thank you again to all of our speakers and to you all from around the world who have joined us. And clearly no program of this magnitude can be successful without the support and dedication of inordinate number of team members and volunteers. And I wish to express my sincere gratitude to them and also to Legend Productions, for their support. You will recall as we come to a close that when you registered, we had asked if you were interested in perhaps entering a raffle for Dr. Rai's book on leadership, right? And the values compass. So what we are going to do is do the random drawing. And those of you who have, we pick from the random participants, we will contact you directly to seek your mailing address and send you this hard copy book. So look forward to an email coming from the Sikh Leadership Summit requesting you for those details. So once again, we are at time. Thank you all so very much for joining us from around the world today. We look forward to connecting with you again in the future. Have a wonderful day and please stay safe. Thank you.